Au revoir. All right, we're rolling. Welcome to another episode of FitPet Boston Talks. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Leah Lodato. I am a dog trainer and professional dog walker. I walk dogs in the Boston area, and this podcast features local Boston, Massachusetts area dog handling professionals. I sit down and we just chit chat about our lives, our dogs, and our careers. It's not an endorsement of any type of training style. It's just a place for dog handling pros to talk about their lives and their experience, and for their clients, their customers, to get to know them a little bit better. And today I am super psyched to have Autumn Keene in the studio with me today. She is owner of The Autumn Canine. And yeah, we're just going to chit chat about what Autumn has been up to. It sounds like a lot of new stuff. And we got the chance to go on a little walk before this interview, get to know each other a little bit better. So Autumn, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming. I know that this can be a little bit of a weird little thing, but thanks for trying it out.
Yeah, it's definitely a different setting.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your origin story and how'd you get started working with the dogs?
So my origin story starts a little bit with a dog I got, my family got when I was in my 20s. I wasn't living at home. He was kind of inherited, very difficult dog, very hard to work with. And we ended up kind of house locking him because he didn't like people. He didn't like dogs. He didn't like to be outside of his space. So then I went on to have kids and do my journey. And then I came back and I ended up with a opportunity to work with a company doing pack walking. And so in that, I've always been interested in trying to figure out my own dog. And then I found in my pack walking, my packs were getting bigger and bigger and less manageable and less manageable. And so I said, I got to take a step back and I got to fix this. And how do I fix it? Learn to train them. So I went off and I did a online course through Animal Behavior College, and I think it was a very great platform. I'm the person that kind of needs that organization and structure that it gave me. And then from there, I just kind of took it and did YouTube and podcasts and listened to everything. And I still listen to everything and anything I can. And take it that way.
For learning and such.
Yeah.
So do you identify yourself as a certain type of trainer, or what's your training philosophy?
So basically, if I had to put myself in a category, it would be balance trainer. But I don't love to put myself in that category because some dogs I go purely positive. Some dogs might need a little less purely positive. So yes, it is a balance trainer, but I kind of feel like I work with what's in front of me and gear it towards that. Yeah.
Awesome. So your business is pack hiking and training?
Yes. So I recently branched off of the company I was with for 5 years. It was great. I loved it. I was her first employee. I had a blast. She's a wonderful person. But it got to the point where I was doing my own training and a lot of my own stuff, and I just felt it was my time to kind of branch off. And so now I'm doing my own pack hiking. I offer pack hikes and then training hikes for people who really can't be involved because they're busy working. So I'll take your dog on a hike and I'll do whatever you're struggling with that week.
Cool. So you're kind of integrating private sessions with the pack hike. Is that what?
Yeah. So typically the training hikes are usually solo with that dog or, however many dogs are in the house. But if the thing that they struggle with is socialization, then I will bring other dogs and work through that because, that's kind of what everybody's dealing with in COVID.
Yeah. Talk a little bit more about that because it's something that I think a lot about and Laurie and I talk a lot about, but it'd be nice to get another voice to give your perspective on what is exactly happening with COVID and how people are interacting with their dogs.
Yeah. So my personal feel on it is, unfortunately, everybody had to lock in when the dogs really needed to be out and really needed to be socializing and seeing other dogs. And I feel like a lot of people, obviously, everybody got a dog in COVID, even people.
Yeah, it's been a huge population boost.
Absolutely. Even, I meet people every day that are like, I was never going to get a dog. So I think they ended up getting the dog and thinking it was going to be their companion and their way to get through COVID, and kind of missed the opportunity of socializing the dog. And the dog, they kind of became each other's crutches, how I feel a little bit, where they became their own socialization together. The family wasn't seeing anybody and the dogs weren't seeing anybody, but they were together and they had each other. So now when I bring dogs into pack hikes, some of them are completely overwhelmed and can't handle it. And some of them love it, but it is sensory overload and they can't focus because it's just so new to them. And then I see a lot of people that struggle with just walking their dog, because seeing a person or a dog go by is like Christmas morning when it should be just the norm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm lucky in that way with my pack hikes that I was able to basically take all the dogs that I had on leash before COVID and say, I need to operate differently because all of these owners are home or they're like hybrid. So I do have a few new clients, but majority of my clients have moved from the street walk to the woods.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of lucky in that way.
Yeah.
Now in your area, so you're on South Shore, Massachusetts. Can you talk a little bit about the type of, just like what's out there as far as woods versus street walking and things like that? Like how do people exercise their dogs and what are they looking for when they hire a dog walker?
Yeah. So I would say mostly it's woods. Everybody wants their dogs off leash and in the woods.
Yep. Different than here. Very different than here. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody wants their dogs to kind of be dogs. But in that aspect, they also want their dogs to greet everybody and everything, and they don't care how the greeting happens. So I have to a lot of times explain to people, you can't just let your dog run up to everybody. Not everybody loves dogs. Not every dog loves dogs.
Yeah, totally.
So I have to explain that a lot to people. And I do have a lot of clients that want their dogs off leash and they walk their dogs off leash, but I won't, because I'm very strict as to the dogs in my group are not allowed to greet other dogs unless I say it's okay. And usually I just don't. But
yeah, no, totally. Sometimes you have to.
Yeah, but we don't have a lot of sidewalk walking. We do have a lot of sidewalks in town, but we have so many woods. We have Wampatuck, which I don't even want to take a guess at how many acres it is, but it's unbelievable. It covers like 3 or 4 towns.
Yeah, so you could almost have your own little private little parking area if you find it.
Yes.
I'm sure.
I've actually found a couple that I'm not going to tell where they are.
You're not going to divulge anything about that. That's like gold when you're a dog walker.
Yes. I actually found one the other day that I think the only reason it was empty is because the drive in was flooded and muddy. And my dog vehicle is lifted and has big tires. And I said, sweet, I got the place to myself.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it was nice. But yeah, no, it's super secret if you find a trail like that.
Yeah, around here, the woods are much more. I'm a little familiar with we used to call it Wampy because of the, I would mountain bike down there.
Yeah.
Yeah, really hard trails, technical.
There are hard trails. I've always said in Wampatuck, I wish they would make trails for bikes and dogs. Because I think everybody would be happier if it was that way.
Yeah.
Bikes and dog people. But yeah, I actually in COVID, I had to leave Wampatuck because at the beginning of it, all the kids were home, the families were home, and I don't have every dog loves kids. So I ended up leaving Wampatuck. And it was nice because I think everybody went to Wampatuck. And so now I have all these little hidden trails that I get to go to.
Yeah, cool. Sometimes you have to think outside the box.
Exactly.
If the space exists, which...
Yes.
Thankfully, I feel like in Massachusetts, like DCR and a couple of other organizations are pretty good about preserving the woods for us.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, we have... So Wampatuck is DCR. We have a couple other DCR trails. And then we have the trustees trails, which are amazing also. And I feel like people really cherish them. So it's very kept up nicely, even by volunteers.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit more about that whole, I'll call it a dichotomy because I guess it kind of is, but an owner that is okay with their dog being off leash.
Yeah.
And, their dog's never going to leave them.
Yep.
With air quotes. But, you come along as a professional dog walker and say, listen, I know that you're cool having your dog off the leash, but when they're with me, things are going to change a little bit. Can you talk a little bit more about that dynamic and kind of what's make or break, and how do you evaluate a client to see whether they're a good candidate for a pack hike?
Yeah. So I always take a dog solo first. It's one-on-one, me and the dog. The dog has to learn me. I have to learn the dog. And then from there, my first 3 to 4 hikes, the dog will not be off leash. I don't put a number on the amount of hikes, but once I get that, it's that time.
The feeling.
Yes.
You got the feel.
Yes.
You're like, you got it, man.
Exactly. And typically you end up showing up at the house and you see the dog and it just has this different look in its eye, like, I know you and I know where we're going. And it gets so excited. And that's when I'm like, all right, you won't leave me. And so it's always, first step is, do you walk your dog off leash? Because if the owner doesn't walk their dog off leash, I probably won't. I do have had a few clients that I go, you can relax, take a deep breath and drop the leash. But typically owners know their dogs. So I typically, if the dog is walked off leash with the owner, I always give a kind of rundown of, can you call your dog when your dog sees another dog? And if you call your dog when a dog sees another dog, do they turn around and kind of flip you the bird and go off? Or do they come to you? And usually people say, well, they'll come to me after they say hi. They just have to say hi. And I say, okay, we can work with this.
No.
Yeah, exactly. So I say, no, they can't say hi with me, but I can work on that. And so then we just grab a long line and start working that way. And if I can get the dog to come to me when another dog is coming, great, you can be off leash. When my pack sees another dog, person, bike, it doesn't matter what it is, we step off the trail and we all sit. I don't sit, I stay standing. But
Wouldn't that be funny?
Yeah.
Why is this one laying down? I said down, damn it.
Might give a whole new dynamic to it. People might stop and wonder. But so they all sit, they have to stay seated, and they have to watch the dog go by. And then I also have to have the dynamic, because there's occasionally times where the owner of another dog will look at me and go, you're going to have to walk by me.
Yep.
So then I have to take my group and I have to walk by, and that's not what we practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to practice that once in a while. And they do pretty good. They do really well at walking by, but they're much better at sitting and watching.
Yep.
And then I always get the people that go, oh my God, that's amazing.
Yeah. And they want to talk to you about it for 9 minutes.
Yes. Yes. As you have a dog that's glaring at their dog. Yes, that's fun. But yeah, so I always test them. They always start in a solo with me. And then from there, I just go back to the owner and I say, your dog's great. Let's go to the pack hikes. Or I say, I think your dog needs a little bit of work. Let's stay with solos for a little bit and get them worked into it.
Cool. So are you doing these because I know time is so precious. You know, for me, I'm sure for you, it probably the driving is even more because you have a longer distance to go.
Yeah.
Closer to the city. It's like, you could kind of just pinballing around, grab, my 4 or 5 dogs, get them in the car, go.
Yes.
So are you doing those solo walks well after or before your day starts and ends, so to speak?
So I always do my main pack walk is 2 hours. So I always do that first. And I'm usually wrapped up with that around lunchtime. And then once I get everybody dropped off, I just go straight to my next one. And that's where I do either it's a training hike or a new client or whatever. And those are 1 hours.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you. You're out there longer than me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do 45 to an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nice unless it rains.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I'm lucky enough that I typically always have a client right near my house. So if I get poured on, I can go home and change.
Yeah. I know. I have water hogs.
Yeah.
My dogs, I have a lot of labs and doodles, and they just love to be in the most disgusting water available.
Yep. And if it's clean, they'll make it mud.
Yeah. Yes. Let's dig up the bottom, make it nice and gross.
Yes.
I know. That's great. As far as like how you work your training schedule into your walking schedule. How many dogs do you don't have to say the number, but do you see a correlation between, doing private training sessions because someone called you and says, hey, I'm having this issue with my dog. I just got a new puppy. Let's do a private, and then kind of picking them up for walks. Is that something that happens regularly or not? Or how's that been working out for you?
Yeah, it does. I have a lot of clients that are very busy. Working from home, kids are home. Luckily, they've started going back to school, but they still have the town I live in. We still have Wednesdays as a half day. So I know a lot of households where one parent has actually stepped out of working because they've had to in COVID because the kids are home. They're trying to do remote school. So I have had a lot of clients that start as a one-on-one training session that end up going, I don't know when I can fit you back in. And I go, well, how about a training hike? How about you just tell me what you're working on? What's struggling you that week? I take the dog out, I do the 1 hour, and then I come back and I say, this is your homework. And it kind of gives them a little bit of a hands off. And then where I started in pack hiking, it was always this mentality of if you lose a client, it was always, it's sad. It's not a happy thing because either they've moved or whatever, but you get so attached to the dog. And then branching into training was a weird scenario for me to do a certain amount and then say, okay, bye.
Yeah,
and just
you did
kinda
well.
walk away.
Everything's going well. Keep up the good work. Call me if you need me.
Exactly. And it was weird to kind of have that ending to it. So I've been lucky where I've had a lot of clients that say, the dog's doing great, but I could really use you to take the dog out once in a while. So I have this great dynamic where they kind of transfer in. And then I've already done a couple trainings with them. So I know if they can go straight to the big hike or if they need to just do some one-on-ones.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I've definitely seen, I'm going to say something might be controversial, but I think that this style of training is better than board and train.
Yes.
And I think that more and more people are not, and I don't mean clients, I mean dog trainers are seeing the value of it because it happens on a continuum.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, okay, now I think board and trains are great, especially for like behavior issues, things of that nature. But some people put their dog in a board and train because they're just overwhelmed. So I think that this style, which is very similar to what I do as well. Actually, right now, I'm not taking any clients that don't do training with us. I just don't do it.
Yeah.
Because it's so nerve-wracking for me to have a new dog.
Yeah, I agree.
That I don't know. And I'm getting to the point where I take everything so personally and I want success like right away.
Yep.
And I shouldn't say right away. I'm realistic about it, but I want to feel good.
Yeah.
And I know that I can get over that hump in training classes. I don't have to suffer like by myself in the woods, and I can have a team with me. Like, okay, the owners are on my team.
Yep.
And know what's going on. And I feel like I'm seeing really nice results with the behavior of the dogs. And also the relationship with the owner is nice too, because there's that cohesion there.
Yeah.
So I think, I don't know, I do think that board and trains are wonderful and have their place, but I also think that this style is more natural almost.
Yeah. Yeah. I like board and trains, and I don't do them because I'm out too much of the day. It's just not fair to the dog.
Yeah, neither do I.
Yeah. But I do have a place I refer out to, and I really like board and trains for the scenario of a very difficult dog that, resource guarding or something along those lines that you really don't want to say, okay, now I want you to practice on this
No,
for the week. So certain things like that. I've had dogs that I'm working with that, I've already done. I have one I finished up with them. They were great. And then they reached out and they said, we're starting to see some of this, we can't take anything from the dog. And I said, I got a guy, go to him. Because I think resource guarding is something that an owner kind of needs to be hands off on. So I love board and trains for that idea. I love board and trains for the idea of a client that just doesn't have time. And then, but I find that a lot of clients in my area feel like they don't have time because they have kids. But if you just give the kids a job to do with the dog, they can all do it together. So I always try to incorporate the kids. I have so many people that ask me, we have to schedule this so I can get the kids a babysitter. And I say, no, bring them. Unless they're going to be a distraction to you, I want them there, and I'm going to give them a job, and I'm going to give them a task to work on for the week. And it might just be, a lot of times when you're working recall, say you have 3 kids, I make them all stand in a circle in the yard and call the dog randomly, And so in that, they get to practice recall, they have fun with the dog, or play hide and seek. Play hide and seek with your dog. Tell the dog to come. You're practicing recall.
Right.
Yeah.
It turns into a game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so when the kids get involved, it's so much easier for the parents. And then when the kids are, if they're a touch older, sometimes the parents might be busy and you can say, take the dog out for 15 minutes and go do this. Go do what we practiced last week. And then, it's a little more hands off. So I feel like some people feel like they're too busy, but if you find the way to do it, like I always tell people when you're practicing downstay, empty your dishwasher. Don't just stand there and stare at your dog or walk around in circles. Empty the dishwasher.
You're funny. You say empty the dishwasher. I say do the dishes.
Yeah, exactly. Something like that. Just you want to be moving for the distraction, but do something that you need to be doing.
Well, and that's normal.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing that I'm realizing is that, we talked a little bit before we started up about like working out and going on walks with your dogs and like doing all these things. And I feel like before you start doing something like that, you have a map in your mind of how you think that process is going to look.
Yep.
And reality is when you actually start doing it, it's just like life is happening.
Yep.
You make these decisions to follow through with your goals, but it's not like this monumentous thing and there's no checklist that you're actually checking off boxes. It's just that you are doing it and living your life. And I think that when people get a dog, they think I have to do this, and this. And it's like, no, you just have to live correctly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't say correctly, but live in a way that is going to benefit everybody, the dog included. And when you actually start doing that, it's integrated into your life, and it's not, you can't put your finger on it, and it's not going to look like the picture that you had in your mind of how things were going to happen. Yeah. And I just had a client this morning, and she said the same thing, like, oh, the more I do this, like the more I kind of like it, and I see myself spending more time doing it. That I never wanted a dog, basically. Mm-hmm. Another thing about kids too is like their attention span is literally the length of a puppy's.
Yeah.
So it's like when they lose interest, the puppy's done anyway. Yep. And I say that to people all the time too. It's like, I know your kid is 8. Their attention span is going to be the same as your, 10-week-old puppy. So few reps. That's enough for now, unless you have like a shepherd or something like this.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I feel like it's that. I feel like training your dog is a lot like going to the gym. So if you sit there and you're sitting there with your coffee in the morning going, all right, what time is it? How much time do I have to be at the gym? It's going to take me 15 minutes to get there. And then I have to do this. And then I have to come home and I have to take a shower. You just end up going, I'm not going to go. That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's overwhelming when you like map it out like that.
Exactly. So same thing with your dog when you're like, all right, I have to work with the dog twice a day for 15 minutes. Where's my 15 minutes? Where can I fit this in? How can I do it? Instead, just cook dinner and put your dog in a down. Do stuff like that and work with your dog while you're living your life. I had a client the other day actually ask me a very good question. And he said, what is the most important thing you think a dog should know? And I kind of sat back and I was like, wasn't prepared for that. But my answer was how to be calm. I think a dog needs to know how to be calm because then from there, you can take it as far as you want. Because then you have attention. You can work with them. If the dog doesn't know how to be calm or you don't know how to get the dog to calm, exactly, just like that.
It took a while.
Yeah.
For him to be calm with a stranger.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, if a client came to me and said, I'm open for anything, how far do you want to take this? I would say, I want you on the side of a street at a restaurant with your dog under your chair and you're having lunch. That's where I want you. I want people walking by. I want cars going by. And I want you relaxed and your dog relaxed. And that would be ideal. Not every dog can do that. But I just think that would be so amazing. And that's something I could never do with my dog that I had. He would lose his mind if I tried that.
Yeah, I certainly couldn't do it with Ruben.
No.
He's too stimulated by everything in the environment.
Yeah.
But I also think that if you look at it in those terms, like, I want my dog to be calm. It's like, okay, what's the context too? You can have different contexts and figure out what works for your dog.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be a point in your dog's day where they are decompressing. And not to circle back to crate training, but that's also why the crate is so important. Just creating that space where they can relax and, they actually have a chance.
Yeah.
Especially in the home, I think, with a lot of activity and people being around because of COVID and such. I know that was a huge help for me with him, and our other dog too, was just being able to provide an environment where that's even possible. You know, and a lot of dogs don't have that ever if they don't find somebody to help them and just be like, hey, put them in the crate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'm trying to answer that question in my mind. I think it's oh man, this is hard just being recorded,
I know it's a hard question too.
I think it's knowing their place.
Yeah.
I think is important. Like, I don't want to talk about pack order because they're not wild animals anymore, but I think knowing their place is an important thing. I think it's a very vague phrase to say. But even if you have another dog in the home, it's important for each one of those dogs to know their place in relation to the other as well. I remember when we got Ruben, we had an old dog and we picked him out of his litter mates because he interacted with our old dog.
Yeah.
I didn't care what he looked like.
Right.
I was like, well, this one is all right. And that's literally how I got my dog.
Yeah. That's like the best way to do it.
Because she was, I think, 11 at the time, and corrected him quite hard within a week of getting him. And that was it. And he learned his place, and he never walked through a door before her.
Yeah.
And after that, and that kept him from getting a hole.
Yeah.
So things like that, are just like daily type of things. And then, with training, it's, if I say something, you listen to me.
Yep.
And
it's pretty simple.
It's pretty simple, but okay, you got to know where you fall in this category. And I think that's important too. And it's hard, I think, for some people to wrap their mind around, like, oh, I can ask my dog to do something, and the follow through is what my expectation is.
Yeah.
You're not forcing them to do it, because you have to think, okay, what is their motivation and how do I figure out, what exactly is motivating them to do X, Y, and Z, or what I want them to do. But at the same time, it's okay to have that expectation. And I feel like people are terrified to have that expectation because we have no expectations of people anymore. Yeah. I feel like, anyway. So to say that to somebody, especially moms, I find.
Yeah.
Like when you say, oh, you can ask him to do it and expect that it happens. And they're like, what?
And you would think they would be the ones to get it because they're doing that with the kids.
Sometimes, but.
Yes. Yeah, I have to tell people all the time. I see people get frustrated when they're trying to do something with their dog and their dog's not doing it or not listening. And I always tell them, don't give up. I'm constantly, I think every training session that I have ever had, I've looked at the owner at one point and said, don't give up, because they're about to look at me and go, I need help. And I can step in, sure, and your dog will do it for me. But I want your dog to do it for you, not me. So I always, and you see them, when you say that, you see them go, okay. And they take the deep breath and they go back, and then the dog does it. And it's just, I like seeing that part of it. I mean, it's easy for me to go in and tell your dog to do something. That's easy. I know how to communicate with a dog. You don't. I want you to know how to communicate with your dog. So my first session is all about yes and no. That's it. And I always tell I always try to find something that the dog doesn't know. So, you go in and people have taught their dog to sit, they've taught their dog down, and I go, okay, what does your dog not know? And we start there. And sometimes it's just as simple as a down. My dog's not great at down. Perfect. Let's start with that. Let's work on that. And I want your dog to mess up. I want your dog to make mistakes, because once we show the dog what to do, then the mistakes come in and you get to use your no, because a lot of people don't use no and then follow with a yes. So I find that it's a pretty broad spectrum where you get people that say no all the time and hardly ever yes, or you get people that are always telling their dog, good job, yes, you've done it, and they're not really following through with no's. So when you need to tell your dog they're doing something wrong, the dog has no idea what you're saying. So I always I start with the yes and no's. That's number one. And then after that, we work on the next step of teaching your dog something it doesn't know with a no, but then make it a yes after. So dog gets up on the counter. No, get off the counter. Sit. Yes, good job. Because if the dog, I feel like so many dogs are hearing no all day long that they're just like, I don't even know what I'm saying, no, what they're saying no to. I just hear it all day long. Everything I do is a no.
Yeah, I got a client. I got in touch with me, a potential, and made this long list of things that they wanted from training.
Yeah.
And every single one of those things on the list was what they want their dog to stop doing. And I was like, oh my goodness. I was like, I don't think I'm the trainer for you.
Yeah.
And I didn't even really say anything after that. I really didn't, because we were getting quite a few calls and it was just, how it's been.
Yeah.
And I said, I simply just said, dog training is about finding what you want your dog to do.
Yeah.
And how to teach them how to do that.
Yep.
And also understanding who they are as a dog, not being a human, their genetic makeup and all of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just so funny to me, because I read it and I was just like, oh, I'm exhausted.
Yes. I know that client.
But I also think that it's just because the general population doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that the old school way of I'll make a very roundabout comparison. I walk a Doberman,
mm-hmm. and
she's very intimidating looking, even though she's old. She's got the cropped ears, very serious. Don't even think I've ever seen her open her mouth pant or anything like that. She's serious.
Yeah.
But she's really obedient, And so anytime I see somebody old,
mm-hmm.
I mean over 70, let's say.
Yep.
They will always say, if they interact with me, I hope the dog is obedient. Or
interesting.
You have a good handle on keeping her obedience. And they always say something about obedience.
Huh.
And I think that old school kind of mindset was very focused on obedience training.
Yeah.
And it's because it's happened to me 5 times in the past 3 months or something, which doesn't seem like a lot, but kind of is,
mm-hmm.
where somebody will say to me, oh, I hope you have a good handle, or she listens to you, or something along those lines. And it just got my mind thinking about what the mentality used to be with dogs. Yep. And it basically is, are you able to control the dog's behavior and have obedience? And obedience is not saying no to the dog.
Right.
So it's in my head, I was like, what was it about back in the day that people understood? When I ask you to do something, do you do it? That there's a disconnect between today's generation of people wanting their dog to stop doing all of these things.
Yeah.
And it just got my mind thinking in those ways. And I know that it's because she just looks like she will literally kick the crap out of anything that comes near,
Yeah.
If it was Reuben,
Yeah.
And sometimes I do walk him with her, and people, I've had people stop because they look like little minis of each other.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was just thinking about that in terms of, walking her and the mentality that people have about dog training and what it really means.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought of that randomly.
No, I feel like it's a mentality of everything from back then because you're talking that age generation was their kids were in the 80s. Dogs were free. I mean, I was born in the 80s. I remember dogs just wandered. We just had dogs. I mean, I was also in Burlington, Vermont, so it was a little more free, but it wasn't this mentality of keep your dog on leash, keep your dog near you. The neighbor's dog would come over and I'd be like, "Hey, come on over." But the kids were told to do something and did something. And that I don't feel like that happens with kids so much anymore.
Well, when I was growing up, I was told never to go up to a dog.
Yeah. Like I said, Burlington, Vermont, it's still very different up there with dogs. If you go up to Burlington with a dog, everybody is there. People still tie their dogs outside of a store to go in.
Yeah.
Which never happens here.
No, those they're like taking pictures and posting it on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. You can't.
I have one of my clients that like ties a note around her dog's neck. It's like, leave my dog alone at Trader Joe's or whatever when she just runs in for like a milk or something.
Right. Or the ones that the car's on and it says AC's on, dog's okay. Yeah, no, it's still a different mentality up there. It's more of a mentality of your dog is part of your family and your dog goes everywhere with you, as opposed to here where your dog stays home. If you're going to go out to dinner, your dog's at home. If you're going to go to the store, your dog's at home. Up there, your dog's with you.
So I guess up there, if you did have a power breed, you would have to have them under control versus the other dogs that were just loose.
Yeah.
That makes a lot more sense with my example.
Yeah.
Glad we had this conversation.
Yeah. And I feel like they're also kind of like the junkyard dogs. Like people were so afraid of them because they were always at the junkyard. And I mean, I have this theory that half of them were actually probably nice, but they just look so scary. But yeah, I think it's definitely goes to the breed, but also goes back to the mentality of, that whole thing of everybody gets a trophy now, where you used to have to work for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because when I think the reason why I do connect with a lot of dog people is like a lot of dog people are no nonsense.
Yeah.
Like really, because I think when you truly work with dogs and understand them, you're like, you become more realistic about those type of things.
Yeah.
And then not even in a political way. I just mean in like a common sense type of way.
Yep. Yeah. I also feel like dog people are better with their kids sometimes.
Oh, interesting.
At telling them to do things. Because I actually have a friend of mine. She was over, I was on the phone or something, and one of my kids wasn't listening. And my kids are 11 and 13. They're in 6th and 7th grade right now. And I just instinctively went to 1, and they go, "Okay, fine." And she goes, "You can still count and your kids do it?" And I go, "Yeah, we've never gotten to 3. I think they're terrified of 3.
Yeah, they haven't stopped and think of what exactly is going to happen if she gets to 3.
No, there's just, it's kind of
like classically conditioned.
Exactly. It goes a lot back to dog training. Like
it's an automatic response. No, you don't have control over it.
Yeah. I have a few dogs that if I look at them and I tell them to do something and they don't, and if I go, they go, "Oh no, she's disappointed."
That's wonderful.
Yeah. And the kids do it too. As soon as I start counting, they go, "Oh no, we've messed up." Yeah, I can't let them listen to this though because I don't know what happens at 3.
That's awesome. Oh man. So I do want to talk a little bit about your business in and of itself. I know you've gone through some changes, and I was super happy when I saw that you posted that you were going out on your own. I think that for a lot of people, that's a big thing to do. I know for me, it was much more gradual. I had a full-time job when I started walking dogs, and I was able to kind of dip my toe in the water, and then my foot got wet.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about the evolution of your business, what you're doing right now, some of the things that you've been working on.
Yeah. So I kind of actually fell into the job. It was funny. I was in a job that I hated. I was actually cleaning houses, which I love cleaning. I found out I hate cleaning for other people because it was all on a time schedule. When I clean, I turn on the radio, I get a podcast going, I do whatever I want to do, and I spend my day. And then I just ended up in this like, you have to get it done. We have to get to the next one. And I go, this isn't fun. This is no fun at all. And so I just saw this thing pop up on Facebook that said, do you like dogs? Do you want to work with dogs? And I was like, yeah, I have no idea what this job is, but yes, I do like dogs and I do want to work with dogs. And so I definitely went into it with the mentality of what I feel like a lot of people go into it as, I don't want to work with people. I want to work with dogs, which in all reality, it's the exact opposite.
Yeah, you wind up working with people really deeply.
Exactly. You get way more deep in with people than you ever expected. But I ended up at the interview and the lady was just such a free spirit and she was so fun. And I was like, this sounds just amazing. And she had just started out. She told me this great story about she was walking dogs in the city in college. And then she got married and she was out of the work field for 10 years. And then she got divorced and she started walking dogs again for a company. And then said, why am I doing it for someone else? I'm going to do it for myself. And so when I had met with her, she had just been in her first year and she was on her own and she just found her business expanding. And so she was hiring. So I started working with her and it was the best opportunity. I was able to help her build her company. Both of my parents own small businesses. They started from nothing. And so I helped them as I was a kid. When I was 12, I was taking my dad's calls on his phones. And my mom had a packing and shipping company that I would be in the back room packing up. But I got this really great basis in customer service and business. And I was able to help her build her business. And I got to a point where I was pretty much running her business. I was doing the scheduling, I was doing everything, and I was very well compensated, very happy, not at all a complaint. But I looked back once I got into the training part of it and I was doing training, and then the training clients that wanted to get into the hiking, I was transferring them to this other company. And I was like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
And so I took a long time. Honestly, I took about 6 months and I sat back and I looked at it and I said, I can't just leave her because she's now a friend. So I helped get her to a point where she was doing more of her business. She took the scheduling back over. She started doing more. She had more employees. Everything was going great. And her business was at a great point. And I said, all right, it's my time. So I gave her 60 days notice, which is way more than anybody would ever do. But I couldn't, that business, even though it wasn't mine, was still a little bit of my baby because
sure.
I was there from the beginning.
And it's not like you're working for like a big corporation.
Yeah.
You're working for another small, maybe even micro business.
Exactly. It is definitely a micro business. So I had a great conversation with her in telling her, I think it's my time. And I gave her plenty of notice and we just kind of went about that way. And so now I'm out doing my own and I'm loving it. It has not come easy because the night I came home from a meeting with her to tell her I was leaving, I came home to my Facebook page shut down, my business page, and I had no idea what was going on. And I had to figure it out. And it turns out I was using my name. It was the Keen K9. And it's spelled Keene. There is a company in Pennsylvania or Philadelphia, I can't remember which one, that is the Keen K9, Keen. And his is trademarked. So apparently he had reached out to me, but I didn't know it because he reached out on my business messenger and then shut down my page so I couldn't see it.
Yeah, sure.
But so he gave me notice technically and then subsequently kept shutting down all of my platforms, anything I had. And so I ended up getting a lawyer and I was going to fight it. And I was going to say, this is my last name. How can you take my name?
Right.
It's not even my married name. I was born with this. I kind of took it really personal. And then the lawyer ended up telling me, you're at a point to rebrand. She's like, rebrand. And so I sat back on it for like a week and I couldn't come up with a name and it was driving me crazy. And then one day I said, what about the Autumn Canine? And then I'm like, I don't love it. I don't love it. And then someone said, come up with a tagline. And I go, just like the leaves, your dog can change.
Aw.
And then I was like, I love it. I'm good. Let's do it. Let's change it. So now I'm still in the process of waiting to hear back from the, I decided to change everything. So I'm changing my logo. I'm changing everything. So the graphic artist is going to get back to me with a new logo and I'm going to just be brand new.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. It was a great time to do it. It couldn't have come at a better time.
No, that's a good story. Thank you for sharing that with us. I asked if you would because I think a lot of people that listen to the podcast are also small business owners. And I just got a notice in the mail to renew my trademark for FitPet Boston, even though I don't even work in Boston, because I had this grand scheme when I first started my business. Like, oh, I'm going to work in the city. And if people work for me, like they can work in other parts of like, the greater Boston area and it'll be encompassing.
Yeah.
Then I realized like, I don't really want anybody to work for me, so it changed. But at the same time, I was just like, I'm going to stick to the name. So I think it's good for people, especially when you own a small business, just because, you're small doesn't mean that you're insignificant. And like you said, you had an emotional attachment to the name.
Yeah.
And so, it's a tough thing, even though, rebranding is like no problem. Like if I wanted to rebrand my company, I'm like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, it's not going to affect my bottom line, basically.
Right.
Like the actual money coming into my business would not change.
Yeah.
It would obviously cost money to do that, but I still have my clients. You still have your clients.
Yes.
You still have your bread and butter and the people that are paying you for your services
And the word of mouth.
Yeah, but the blow I think to the ego is abrupt. I can tell.
It was tough. And it was also such a weird time because I had just given my notice to something that I really didn't want to leave. I kind of felt like not that I had to. It was definitely my choice, but it was just the time. It was my time to move on, but it was still sad. It was kind of like, going off to college. Like you want to do it, but you don't want to leave your friends,
Right.
So it was really hard to go from that emotional meeting to say I'm leaving to come home to see my page shut down. And it felt like a personal attack. And I really at first took it really hard. And I was like, this is not okay. How can I come back from this? Because everybody knows me as that. But I found that it's been nothing but good. It was good. And then my word of advice is if you're going to pick a name, search a trademark.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I know I did before I started.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think looking back on it, I probably would have just done like my name or my last name or something like that, just to kind of keep it simple. But like I said, at the time, like you can't see into the future. You don't know like, oh, I'm going to marry a dog trainer and she's going to have her own business and I'm going to have my own business. And it's just going to be this like kind of small thing, not a huge thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can't plan for the future, but you can prepare for it, I guess.
Exactly.
I think that's a great message that, like I said, a lot of people that listen to podcasts are also dog handling people. And we are not the best business people.
No.
I got to tell you.
No. I will say I'm not the best.
Yeah, doing books is very low on my priority list. And it is like, I'm like up and I'm just staring at my computer like, why? Why am I doing this?
Yes, I keep telling myself I'm going to set aside Mondays where I'm not going to work. I'm not going to schedule anything and I'm going to sit at the computer and it'll be a great start to the week and it'll be my day for the computer. And then I get clients and I go, no, I'd really rather work with dogs on a Monday than sit at my computer.
And I think also in a different kind of way, when you're doing everything yourself, like you have to build that stuff into your pricing too.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, like this is how much it costs me to walk a dog. And then I have all my other costs and whatever. But the time, that it takes, like, I know for myself before tax season starts, it's like the bookwork that I've been neglecting. There are
Yep.
certain things that I neglect to do which I've been much better about in the past years than I was in the beginning.
Yeah.
But you know, those things like pile up, and all of a sudden the next thing you know, you're like, oh my God, I just spent 30 hours
Yeah.
doing this stuff. Like, am I getting paid for that?
I know.
It's a tough thing. So I definitely have been just trying to like think about everything holistically. And when you're a small business, it's like, you just don't think that way. You know, you get really excited, like, I'm going to get to do what I love and like spend time with dogs and be in the woods and be, you know, in nature, learning and doing all of these other things. And then, you know, you start really adding everything up and you're like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. That was actually one of my major things in picking a software.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I wanted a software that was really user friendly because I found that the software that I was using in the other company was not user friendly, and it was a lot of me doing it, and clients reaching out, and then I have to change it where they could go in and do it. It just was so not user friendly. So I went with Pet Pocketbook.
Yeah, I use them too. They're great.
Yeah, I love them. And
I mean, a no-brainer. If you're a dog walker and you're listening to this podcast, please just go check it out. It's just a no-brainer.
yeah, and they're local.
They're local, and Diane, shout out to Diane. If you email her, she will probably get back to your email before you even hit send.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
They're so much better at responding to me than I am at getting back to them.
yeah, same.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sad to say.
Yeah. I mean, they're great. And then the fact that they do the billing for you was like, I go, that's my thing. That's what I need. I like the hands off, because that was one of the things I loved the best about working for another company. Is that was the only thing I didn't get into was billing and money. And I got to say, oh, I don't do that. I don't do that part. I get to just have fun with you and your dog and communicate with you. And then when they would say, I'm sorry, I haven't paid my bill yet, I go, I don't know. Not my problem. I don't pay any attention to that. And so now I can still kind of do that. And I go, oh yeah, I don't know. My software does that.
Yeah, and I think it's a great way of legitimizing the industry,
Yeah.
so to speak. I know that sounds grandiose to say, but you know, it's kind of honky when you're like, you got half of your people paying you Venmo,
Yeah.
the other people leaving you a cash and an IOU,
Yeah.
and it's like, you know, I was short $2. Here's a bag of treats, and it's like, great, but with Pet Pocketbook, it kind of gives you that added legitimacy of everything is just super streamlined and easy for the customer, really easy for me.
Yep.
As long as like, you know, I check it all the time, like just to make sure that I have everything in there correct.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been really happy with that service, and also that they offer it affordably, I think is huge.
Oh yeah, it's so affordable. And then also, I like the fact that you actually can't even schedule a client until all the information's in. Because in the other software, as long as a name was in, you could schedule. And so I'd have times where I would be like, I don't even know your address. You never put anything in. And in this one, I get to tell people, fill out everything. I can't schedule you till it's filled. And people go, oh, I got to get in there. I got to get this filled out. And I just found it was just so much more kind of forcing the client to do the work that they didn't in the other software. And then I just like them so much. I like how you can put the little bubble of your picture, and I think clients have fun with that. They get to put the picture of their dog, and then I find that nobody ever puts a picture of themselves.
Yeah, no, I don't. That's never happened.
No.
I don't even think I have any with themselves and the dog. Like if the dog's like in the foreground, but they're somewhere, I don't even think I have.
No, it's funny. The humans never put their picture, but I find my clients love to put their dog's pictures.
Yes.
Which is
Everybody
nice.
loves their dog's pictures.
Yes.
That's huge. I noticed that about your Instagram too.
Yeah.
And while we're winding down, can you tell people how to get a hold of you, what your handles are, and what I love following your account. So.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm much more vocal on Instagram than I am Facebook. My Facebook is kind of blah right now. But so I'm the Autumn Canine on both Instagram and Facebook. And then I have a website, the Autumn Canine. Pretty easy. They're all the same. I love posting pictures of people's dogs. So even if you just like to see dogs, go follow my page.
Yeah, I do the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're all looking. This is the one.
Exactly. Yeah. And I feel like downstay or even a sit stay is so important for a dog. And so whether you're a training client or not, just a hiking client, we do that throughout the hike. My hikes are very structured. There's not much playtime because I do have some dogs that are pretty real dogs that if there's too much freedom, they will not handle it well. But then I do have groups that are much more relaxed and free, and they do get time to play. But for the most part, it's very structured, but we do a lot of training in it. And I think that the dogs just end up loving it. And even if you think your dog wants to run and play the whole time, they actually like
just move
structure.
Together.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just move. You know, it's just nice to see like I have a similar situation. I obviously have a few dogs that are a little, not super friendly, but once they get moving and you give them something to do, it really helps with those type of vibes.
Yeah. And I mean, they get more tired when you make them work and make them think as opposed to just running. And then, I do 2 hours. So we could, depending on the group, we could easily clear 4 to 5 miles.
Oh yeah. That's a long time.
Yeah. So, I definitely have some clients that want to be in that group that I have to say, no, your dog can't do that mileage. So yeah. So it's just, I love it. I wouldn't change it for the world. And then I'm liking the human dynamic of it, where I thought initially went into this going, to not work with people anymore, because I had been in customer service before, and to not have to deal with humans and just deal with dogs, that would be amazing. And now I'm finding myself sometimes at people's houses going, I'm not a couples counselor. Can we come back to the dog?
Yeah, I think I've said this before on a podcast, but the certification that we have actually makes you sign a statement that says you will not give counseling advice.
Yeah.
Because it's such a issue.
Yep.
When you walk into somebody's home, the dynamics are, real.
Yeah.
And it can be a little crazy.
Well, it's tough when you get, a husband and wife that are on different pages with a dog. And a lot of times they can start with no, you do this. No, you do this. And I go, okay, let's do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, it's definitely real, but I enjoy it. I
do too.
I think I just love when people have a breakthrough and understand something for the first time. And I think for a lot of folk too, it's been a while since they've done any type of learning. Mm-hmm. And as an adult, if you get into your career or your rhythm and the next thing you know, it's been a while since you tried something new, I liken it to dance class, and I'll say to somebody when they are just practicing something just marking or rewarding behaviors. And it's and I'll say you're just learning the dance, give yourself a break.
Yeah.
I'm here to help you. But if, you're not going to just perfectly know how to do it straight away because it's weird and it's new. And I actually really enjoy that because it's so easy to see improvements when people do just a little bit of the work. Yeah. And I love that. I love seeing somebody who didn't know how to do something turn around and be able to do it and see the results right there, and they're so happy for their dog and their dog's so happy. I really I enjoy that, and I honestly didn't think that I really would. Mm-hmm. But I started like you with walking and then got into the whole training piece later, a few years later. Mm-hmm. But I love it too. It's a cool thing.
I do too. I like that light bulb moment with the human and the dog. Obviously I love the light bulb moment with the dog, but with the human, when they go, oh, when you say it that way, it makes sense. And then you get to look at them and go, that's what your dog is having. If you say it this way, it makes sense.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And then they're getting a reward for it.
Exactly.
We're actually not experiencing that when we're training the dog.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Unless you really find it rewarding when they learn something, which I do.
I do.
But I've had to learn that too.
Yes.
It hasn't just happened instantly.
Yeah. I like the dogs that, you're trying to do a down per se, and it takes forever and it's taking so long. And you can see the owner going, I don't think this lady even knows what she's doing. And the dog's just being really insistent on not doing it down and not getting it. And then all of a sudden you get it and they go, oh, how'd you do that? And I was a person that went into this I did not have much patience, and dogs have taught me to have patience. And so I learn from them just as much as they learn from me.
That's a great life lesson for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, Autumn, thank you so much for coming up,
Thank you
hanging
for
out
having
with me, having this conversation. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast and for supporting the podcast. Thank you for following us. If you're not on Instagram, FPB Talks is the Instagram handle. You can hear about when a new episode is coming about. And thank you to those of you guys that sponsor the podcast on Patreon. Helps me keep my equipment going up. Ruben knows that we are winding down as well. Helps me to keep my equipment live and my subscription to everything that keeps the podcast out on all of the platforms. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And signing off, we will see you next time.